Toyota is launching the 2024 Toyota Tacoma on a rainy fall day in Malibu. Yes, the V6 is gone, but we're going to talk to the chief engineer about that and break down the new engine, suspension, and chassis. We're also going to take it off-road in the mud, drive it on-road with the manual and automatic, check out the many different configurations and different colors. This is going to be a longer video, so lock yourself in your office and pretend you're on a Zoom call for the next 20 minutes. This is the 2024 Toyota Tacoma. This is an all-new design, and this is based on the TNGA-F platform. That means it is body on frame. This is the same frame, the same underpinning that you're getting on the Tundra, on the Sequoia. And this is their latest technology. I'll talk a little bit later about some of the details of this. This is highly configurable. So some of the basics are we get two different available cab designs. This is the double cab, seats 4 people fairly comfortably. We've got 2 different engine choices. This one has the 2.4 liter I-Force Max engine. This is a gas-only engine. There's no hybridization. Makes 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. Pricing for this vehicle starts at about $31,000 and goes up to the 50s. This represents about a $3,000 bump over the previous generation, which started at $28,600. You've got 2 different bed lengths available with this too. We've got a 5-foot bed length, which I think this is, and there is also a 6-foot bed length. And we have different versions that are sort of more or less off-road capable. And with those, we get different suspension packages that sort of go up, and they are tuned separately based upon your use. At the lower trim levels, with the SR, the SR5 Extra Cab, and the Toyota TRD Pre-Runner, you get conventional leaf springs. However, everything else is pretty much multi-link rear end and McPherson style strut up front. Towing is up to about 6,500 pounds and the payload is about 1,700 pounds, give or take, depending on the configuration that you're getting. Let me know what you think about the styling of this vehicle. This has pretty much the same dimensions as the outgoing Tacoma, but I think it's a lot more aggressive with this very chunky front end design with these hexagonal parts to the grille. We've got some running lights. We do have this lower air dam here, and we have pretty big over fenders on the front and the rear too, which sort of give it a more menacing look. So what we've got is a thin waist and wider at the front and the rear that gives it that really unique shape that the Tacoma is known for. So this TRD Sport double cab retails for about $39,000, and it does have some options here. So in terms of the interior packages, what you've got is you get a base cloth seat. That's what this is. And as I talked about earlier, we have different drivetrain possibilities too. So this is just a 2-wheel drive. And then you can get it in a part-time all-wheel drive system, which has a locking differential. So this particular one is more on-road focused. And what they're really targeting here, I think the buyer for this is going to be people that want to do work with this and maybe occasionally do some weekend stuff. So it's people that want to do truck stuff all the time, but also don't want to spend a lot of money. So this is, the Tacoma has been the segment leader for quite a few years right now. And so Toyota has a lot riding on this to make sure that this is good, that people really like this. Got a bed liner, and depending on the configuration, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do with this bed, including getting power in the back too. This is a more basic one. We've got 4 hard tie-down points over here to haul your stuff and do tie-down. We also have this system over here. Of course, it comes with a whole host of available options that you can do to customize your vehicle. We get a basic tow hitch here too, and then let's talk about the interior. All of these come with a digital display. This is a pretty nice display. It gives you a lot of information. The black levels are quite good. Depending on the grade, the trim that you're gonna get, it's either gonna be a full LED or you're gonna get partial with some stuff on the side. And this has the optional 14-inch display, which is really great, especially in the more off-road configurations, because you can get cameras, and they are cameras on the roof, camera on the front, camera in the rear. And what I like about this is you have a traditional HVAC control system here. It's very easy to get these buttons, touch these buttons when you're on a trail, when you're going off-road. They've got a nice solid kind of click to them. And this is an 8-speed automatic transmission in this. It seems quite good, and you can also get this with a 6-speed manual depending on the configuration, all on the lower levels. The materials in here, now this is a pre-production truck, so what we're getting is this nice texture material over here that is sort of soft. It's not that soft actually, fairly durable I guess is what they're going for. This is not representative of what we're going to see in the final production version. This doesn't have any texture on it yet. This is still pre-production. So everything that I'm talking about here, you might see some small imperfections here and there. And we do have these very nice plastic inserts that sort of dress it up a little bit too. Tons of space in here. We have a pretty decent center storage locker console. We have some drink cup holders over here, and then we have wireless charging, and we have 2 USB ports, and they tell me that these are 45 watts, so you should be able to charge your laptop with this. You're getting the fastest charging that you can get with these. And in the back seat we have my tripod, but let's see what kind of knee room I get. I'm 5'9". I'm sitting behind myself. There is a little bit of knee room. Headroom is pretty decent. I'm 5'9", but I think if you're over 6 foot, it might be a little bit tight. It is definitely not the largest rear cab that I've seen in a truck, but it is pretty functional. So the V6 is gone with the 6-speed automatic transmission, and now we have this new iForce engine. It's a 2.4-liter engine, and Toyota says it only shares 50% of the components with passenger cars, and that is because this has a different duty cycle. They know people are going to be towing with this. They know people are going to be sort of abusing this a little bit more. They're going to be doing things that you don't do with a passenger vehicle. So they know that heat is the enemy of a turbocharged engine like this. They say they have built this engine to commercial grade as opposed to passenger car grade. Their whole focus is on keeping this engine running for a long time, and so they've got a lot more cooling in here. Also, they know that people are going to be taking these off-road, maybe not the specific one because this is a 2-wheel drive, but the oil sump will allow for a 40-degree tilt. They're making this more efficient than the 6-cylinder because all of the road-focused versions, like this one, have this front air dam on it. Now, as you go to the more off-road versions like the TRD Pro and the TRD Off Road, you don't get the air dam. And as you move up in the different levels, you get different types of suspension and different features, hardware features that are specific for what you want to do with the truck. So more durability as you go more off-road. You get a wide variety of different wheel and tire packages. These happen to be a 265/60 R18. These are Grabber HTS. These are a more road-friendly tire. This actually is not that loud on road. In fact, they've got active noise cancellation in all these vehicles across the board. So let's go for a quick drive. Turning radius seems pretty reasonable for a truck of this size. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I was able to turn around there pretty quickly. So Toyota has done a lot of tuning and suspension improvements on the Tacoma since the last generation, and it's really, really noticeable to me. The on-road manners here are much better, and it's much more compliant. I feel like there's just better motion control here. So the ride quality is quite truck-like, but it's definitely a little less abusive than the last generation. In fact, this has got pretty good ride quality. It absorbs the bumps pretty effectively, and there doesn't seem to be too much body roll here too. Now, this is not the perfect road to be taking it on, but a lot of people are going to be taking their trucks into the mountains, so I think this is something that is, you know, what you would expect. Brakes seem pretty solid, and the 8-speed automatic transmission is much better than the outgoing 6 that we had, the automatic 6. This is definitely more refined than the last generation, but it feels taut. And I like the fact that it's not a huge pickup. This is a mid-size, so it's a lot easier to place it on a road like this where it is quite twisty and quite winding. Power delivery is pretty good here too. Yeah, there's a little bit of turbo lag, but the transmission seems to be pretty well tuned to be in sync with what you're asking for of the engine. Pretty rapid for what it is. This is a lot better than the V6. There's way more torque. You can feel that 317 pound-feet of torque coming on at a relatively low RPM. Oh, there's a cool little Healy thing happening today here. It doesn't really run out of breath once you get going, and the transmission shifts pretty quickly too. So when I'm just cruising around like this, you don't really notice the transmission, which is a good thing. But when you want to downshift, it's pretty responsive. Steering feel is pretty decent for a truck. This is an electrically assisted steering rack like everything is nowadays. You can definitely feel a little bit what's going on in the nose, and it feels like the front and the rear of the truck are relatively well connected together. The front knows what the rear is doing. There's sort of no surprises here. There's tons of visibility. The seating position is really good. The seat is pretty comfortable. At this price class, I think it's pretty good. And what Toyota really is fighting with is the fact that the Tacoma has been such a successful truck for so long in this midsize segment that they're really fighting with themselves. They're fighting with people that might want to go and buy a used Tacoma because they've got a lot to live up to. And it seems to me like Toyota has done their homework on this truck. They've really sort of sweated the details, and everything seems pretty coherent. Everything seems like it fits together well. It seems like they haven't really forgotten about certain things of the truck. Everything seems to be well balanced and kind of harmonious. They've got a lot of trucks at this more entry-level price from about $32,000 to $40,000. They've got a wide variety of different trim packages that you can get and configurability. And I think that's what really this is all about. They say there's a Tacoma for everyone, and they talk about the Tacoma-ness of these trucks. Now, all the different trim packages from the base SR all the way up to the TRD Pro all have active noise cancellation. It seems pretty good at isolating the noise. You're not getting much road noise on here, which I definitely appreciate. And you're not getting a ton of engine noise either. You do get some nice little turbo noises, which I think are kind of cool, actually. Red lines at a little over 6,000 RPM. This is a legitimately quick truck. Now, the iForce Max engine, which we're not going to have today, is in the higher trim levels. That has, I think, 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. So that thing should be an absolute brute. But for everyday driving, for your average person who's going to be driving this, I think this is a really nice powertrain. It's really, really refined, and the 8-speed shifts great. So with that, let's go talk to the chief engineer to get a little bit of the mechanical details of this truck. This is Sheldon Brown, the chief engineer for the Tacoma, and we're going to ask him some technical questions about how the strategy for this truck came together.
What we wanted to demonstrate today is really the differences in the frame architecture from the previous generation to the new TNGF platform. And again, the new TNGF platform is something that we've cascaded across all of our trucks here, our body on frame in North America, starting with Tundra, and then of course Sequoia, now Tacoma, and the Land Cruiser that we just recently announced coming will be built off of the same structure as well. Looking back to the old or the previous generation, the current model Tacoma, obviously you can see that we have our tri-frame section here boxed. We have the partial C channel here, and then we go into a full open C in the rear. This is really good for keeping a lightweight frame. It gives you some good twist performance, but also the downside of that is you get some of the flex and especially some of the harmonics when you start to get into vehicle ride and handling performance. So we wanted to make sure that we increase the rigidity, the overall strength of the new platform, but we wanted to do it in a way that was, again, common to the flexible among the different needs of the different vehicles on this platform. So a very different strength requirement, for example, for full size than for the mid-size truck. And the way we're able to accomplish that, first and foremost, we have a fully boxed ladder frame, right? So we talk about the box here, and then of course the cross members that go across. Specific to this frame then, we wanted to keep the silhouette roughly or the same. I shouldn't say roughly, we want to keep the silhouette the same between all of the trucks, and then really just extend the frame based on the differences in the wheelbase, for example, between the SUV, the full-size pickup, and the compact truck.
Right, so this box frame construction, which is not open, this gives us more rigidity.
It does.
Than the previous generation, but you say it's still, is it about the same weight?
Yeah, so when we think about the total vehicle architecture, the frame, just the frame in and of itself, is slightly heavier, but if we think about the frame with the suspension and chassis components, we're pretty close to being on par. And the way we're able to do that is we're able to actually change the thickness in various areas. We can apply both gauge up or thickness up of the frame channel, or we can apply higher strength steels in areas where we need additional or we have higher stress, or we need additional strength. And the way we're able to do that is what we talked about in the walk around. We called it Dejima. Dejima is the Japanese word for island, so we're calling them islands of strength. Effectively, what we're doing is we're basically laser blanking and tailor welding a blank together. And you can see here where we have an idea where we can keep a lower gauge, potentially even a lower metal strength here. Where we need that structure here, we're able to then put in a greater gauge and actually a higher strength steel in this area. Weld those two together, we then form them, and then of course they're put together in two C channels come together, and then we weld along the top. The great thing about that is it allows us to have the material and the strength in the areas that we need it, but we don't have to increase the general gauge section. The only other way to do that then, if we didn't do that, we'd have to put some sort of gussets or additional component parts welded on the inside of this channel to strengthen this particular area. And what we, while that certainly is something that can be done, we have additional concerns, and this helps with our corrosion, or I should say our anti-corrosion performance, because we get rid of those heat affected zones on the inside where we have welds and areas for that water can catch and rest. We get rid of that completely because we have a nice smooth wall now. All that water can drain right out and move out. So it's really great for not only the strength and the durability of the frame, but also for the long-term corrosion reliability on the frame.
A lot of people have been in the forums and comments talking about the lack of the V6. So now we
Sure.
have a turbocharged 2.4 engine, and that's going to make more heat than before. So what is Toyota's cooling strategy for this?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. I know it's an important thing for our customers. And the first thing I just want to say is that we are definitely taking these motors, taking these engines and putting them through the same level of torture testing that we would have done on any motor that we bring to market. And specifically, you mentioned the heat, and I think that's an important piece. This is a bit of a Frankenstein here. We don't actually have the cool pack here, but what's important is on the water and the water inlet. Basically, we're using a pump and a water inlet that would be normally spec'd for our V8 motor, about 3 inches in diameter. And really that's to make sure that we have the flow, making sure the water is pushing through the engine cooling jacket, making sure that we keep those temperatures in check so that we can ensure the longevity of these motors. And it's important to note that these, especially on the truck motors, may be different than what we do in pass car, recognizing duty cycles are different, recognizing the fact that we're going to be doing things like towing, etc. We also understand that we run all these motors to what we consider our commercial grade, and especially the componentry, such as the turbo. And the reason we do that is to make sure that we test these motors under even more extreme circumstances, much larger duty cycles, to make sure that when we go out to the truck customer, we're providing a powertrain that's suitable for their needs.
So with the different grades, as we move from on-road to off-road, you've got different types of suspension. Can you kind of explain how, as we move up to more off-road, you are altering the suspension and making, using different components?
Absolutely, surely can. So again, we have a slightly abnormal rolling chassis here. What we did in the front is we've actually demonstrated what the TRD Pro suspension looks like. In the back, we have the TRD Off Road package suspension. Just to give you a sense of what we are doing here, obviously you can see there's some unique features. We get the forged aluminum upper control arm, obviously the Fox QS3 switchable system here for the Pro. But as we think about the different, I'll say, driving scenarios, when we're on road, for example, in the Sport, we're using a twin tube absorber, a spring that's going to have a different rate based, that's going to be more, I'll say, dynamically tuned towards on-road performance, because what we wanted to do with these trucks is to make sure that we are tuning them to that customer expectation. So a TRD Sport is going to be a performance-based, it's going to be tuned with both the wheel and tire, as well as the coils and the absorbers to give you a better on-road performance. We turned to a monotube style when we go to the off-road, which you can see back here. This one's actually our Bilstein monotube with a reservoir, piggyback reservoir. I think that's some technology that we've really brought to make sure that the overall performance off-road, especially when you're heating those shocks up, we have the capacity to keep them cool and make sure that you don't get any shock fade. Another really cool part about this, of course, is this features the Bilstein end stop control. We've got a cutaway of that we can show you here, but that's really great because we can keep a very good linear performance through the on-road area, and then we get additional compression and damping to stop you in those high, when you're off-road, you get those high energy to slow the suspension down before we get you into the bump stops. And so you can see back here, of course, in the reservoir, And then of course here what we're showing, and this is really featuring that end stop control, and that is this basically we've got our valve code, or our valve in here that's allowing of course in this case there would be oil in here, it would be passing through and giving that absorption, and then when we get up to either the topping or the bottoming, we start to pick up the second sort of valve, which can then change the compression ratio.
So basically when you're hitting the stop, you're absorbing some of the energy so it's not transferring
That's
quite
exactly
so
right.
quickly to the body.
You got it, exactly. So we get this high energy. We want to keep this nice and good for compliance on road, but then when we start to get that high energy, we start to really increase that absorption and then stop you from getting into those stops really hard.
So we're in the TRD Off Road. This is Scott.
Yes, with Drive Revolution.
You are an off-road pro, as I understand.
Yes, sir.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take it up some hills. We're going to do some 4 low. We're going to go over some difficult terrain. I think you said some.
We got a small rock crawl area we'll go through. We'll do that first, followed by a couple of different sets of moguls, and then we have a nice side slope, and then we have some offset trenches to do, and some really good long downhills as well.
Excellent. So I'm in the manual transmission and no cameras, so this is going to be kind of interesting. So here we go. Looks like a good 20% grade, I'm going to guess.
Yes.
We're going up here, so 4 low.
Your tilt gauge is on the dash right
Oh, there we go. All right, not giving me a number, just kind of a
Yeah.
that's kind of a vibe, but that's okay.
Right, about 25 degrees.
25 degrees. That was a good guess.
When we take off, what I want you to do is ease off that clutch and then no pedals at all.
Okay.
No clutch, no brake, no gas. You got it. Now come off that clutch. Come all the way off. All the way off.
All right,
no
yep.
pedals.
No
Good.
pedals.
A little tiny to your left. Right there. A little more left. Right there. Very good.
Wow. So we got crawl control on right now, or well, there is no crawl control because we're
Correct. A
manual.
little left, left. There you go.
Oh yeah.
So it's all engine braking. We're just
Okay.
using mechanical advantage of 4 low
Right.
and engine braking, so using the compression from the motor itself.
So with the automatic transmission versions, you get multi-terrain, select, and crawl control, and all that good stuff here. But because we're in a manual, this is all DIY right now. So basically, just doing
Absolutely.
engine braking. I got my foot off the clutch. I got my foot off the accelerator. We're just doing engine braking, and it seems to be doing a pretty good job of getting us down the hill without, any drama really. So now we're going over some, what do you call these?
I'd call them moguls.
Moguls, all right. So we're basically just letting it crawl in first gear. So this is a pretty easy manual transmission to drive.
And let me stop you right here.
Okay.
So that first set you did was, of course, with the sway bar connected. So
Yep.
if you push that button right there, that's going to disconnect our sway bar. You'll see it right there on the dash.
So according to the chief engineer, we're going to get 4 inches of more articulation than we did with the sway bar connected. So you probably saw in the video, we got some of that. Let it do its thing. A little bit of gas. Yeah, I can feel more articulation. Nice long clutch take up on here too, so you can really modulate it pretty effectively. Pretty classic truck transmission, but it's got some nice refinement to it, especially compared to the last generation. I think if you're a manual driver, you're going to like this. This comes in basically the lower 3 grades. You can get the manual, and you have pretty much the same horsepower and torque. It just reduced ever so slightly. Gonna go up
Up on it.
Okay, so we're gonna go up on this little ridge here, do a nice, 15-degree tilt, something like that.
It's getting a little slick. If it would hold us, we were hitting 30. Yeah, I think it's getting a little too greasy.
So this truck is indeed very capable. It is getting a little bit wet. I would love some cameras. I think that would be a nice thing to have, but if you want to save a little bit of money, this manual version is pretty solid.
I'm going to have you engage your rear diff lock as well.
Okay, rear diff lock. There it is.
Just like that.
All right.
All right, and I like your steering. I think just kind of maintain what you got there and give it just a little bit of gas right here. Yep. Just a little. Doing great.
I like the dimensions of a more compact truck like this compared to the Tundra or a full-size truck on a trail like this. This is
More nimble for sure.
more nimble. You got a lot more confidence, and the turning radius is quite good in here too. I'm now in the limited trim, and this is the only one that comes with adaptive variable suspension. So what you've got is several different drive modes where you can customize the shocks and the whole driving experience, anything from custom Sport, Sport Plus, all the way down to Eco. So we're gonna take a little drive in comfort mode, see how it is. And what you're getting here with the limited edition is just a lot more technology than the other ones. This is a more on-road focused vehicle. However, we do have four-wheel drive in this one. We got the traditional transfer case with 4 high, 4 low, and 2 high. And you can also tow with this. And this has a whole bunch of different cameras that you can use to essentially see where you're going. So we have a much nicer fabric. This is a Softex style fabric. These are heated and ventilated. The materials are just a little bit nicer, and we do have this nice sort of faux wood finish on the dashboard. It's a pretty good looking cabin. So let's take this for a quick drive and see how it feels. So with adaptive variable suspension, the ride quality in here is definitely better than the other versions that I've sampled that just have conventional springs and shocks. I've got it in comfort mode right now. And for a truck, it is soaking up the bumps quite nicely, in my opinion. Let's try some of the other modes. So that's comfort, eco. Here's normal, and it definitely stiffened up a little bit. In fact, I think there's better motion control in the normal setting than there was in comfort, where it's getting a little bit of bounce. This is a pretty bumpy road here in Malibu, California on a surprisingly rainy day in the middle of the winter. It's not supposed to rain in California. So in my opinion, that is the biggest difference. Aside from all the nice tech things that you get in here, you get a better stereo. This adaptive variable suspension, in my mind, is the biggest thing. We also have this JBL audio system, which the center speaker pops out. I can't do it when I'm driving, so you can take that to the beach. This is definitely the more comfortable version of this truck that I've driven, the most comfortable version. And with that, I think it's time to sum it up. Toyota had a pretty tough job with the new Tacoma, I'm not gonna lie. Everybody loves the V6, and now that's gone. We've got 2 different brand new power plants, but we also do have different configurations for 4-wheel drive, and I think Toyota has put a lot of effort into this truck. I think it really shows everything has been improved, and I think it's gonna be a big hit. I'm gonna make another video on all the different configurations and options, a buyer's guide. My name is Eric. Click right here for that video when it's available. See you in the next one.